So my this piece of the program is to talk about our kids and to tie in with Ramadan. I think this Ramadan was most effective and probably one of the most peaceful Ramadans in a while. And partly, I know that we can't really see, the pandemic was probably a part of that because we didn't have a lot of the distractions that we normally would have. We were in our homes more than ever before. And during that time, that should have been an opportunity for us to connect with our children, to connect with our young adults, because we all know that parenting doesn't end because they become adults. That's a continued thing. It's forever. That when you become a parent, that doesn't end. That was the assumption years ago, like when they turned 18, 21, they're out the house, but that's no longer the case. Some of us know that those adult children come back and they never really leave us anyway. But my talk tonight, again, is about how to reconnect with our children. Because if we look around in this space, there's very few of us that are here that grew up in this community. And it's kind of sad because there are a lot of us that, you know, the second generation and those that grew up in the community. And that is a totally different experience than coming into the community and accepting Islam as an adult. Growing up in Islam is a different experience. And somehow we are missing that connection with our children, and they're being targeted from the world, from everything, from any addiction, everything. One of the things that Saif brought up today, those things that we're struggling with, our kids are struggling with tenfold, because the things that devices and things that they have at their fingertips now, we didn't have those things. They have it, it's every day, constantly. There's the phones, there's the computers, there's all these different experiences that they're having now that we didn't have to go through, but we still struggle with some things, and some are still struggling with them. And so that is trickled down to our children. And if we are not able to connect with our children, we're losing them. And part of the connection is being able to communicate with them. And we have to learn how to communicate in a way of communicate in a sense of listening, and not always communicating in a space of wanting to respond. Because if you're in a space of wanting to respond, you're going to miss the bulk of, or probably the most important aspects of what's happening, because you're just waiting to respond to something versus having that communication, having those conversations to listen, to hear. And I think about the aspect of like parenting. If we started our parenting, or if we looked at our parenting the way we look at our jobs, it would be a different experience. Because when we go into our jobs and we get evaluated, we take that criticism, we make it better. We change those things that they say, oh, we look at this, they check that off. Oh, okay. Even if you don't agree, you still will, modify that behavior or whatever it is, because you're looking for that next bonus, that next raise or whatever. When we do that, when our kids voice opinions, and I'm not saying in a disrespectful way, but when our kids object to some things or talk about something or want to discuss matters with us, we shut it down. How? I'm the parent. How are you going to tell me? I know. But sometimes that shuts down the opportunity to have that conversation with that child, because what happens is, if we're not communicating with them, if we're not discussing things with them, best believe the conversations are being had and they're coming from a negative space. And so if we took a poll of how many of us have had an evaluation of our parenting from our kids, how many of us would think that we would rate high? How many of us would fair? And then how many of us was kind of saying, you know what, I wouldn't even do it because I probably would fail. And that's an honest evaluation. But again, having that opportunity to have that dialogue, and it's not about blaming, because Allah blessed us with these children. These are blessings, and we are responsible for them. We're responsible for the things that we pour into them, the things that we don't pour into them. All those things we're responsible for. And if we don't take that responsibility seriously, like with the one thing that I always remember is like the dua of a mother is one of the duas that's always accepted. And we make duas for our children all the time. But how many of us have severed relationships that when we leave this earth, if we are to leave before our children, we will want those duas to be returned. We will want our children to make duas for us. And sometimes we sever those relationships because we're not able to communicate. We don't want, we if anything is uncomfortable, we, instead of us being able to say, you know what, I'm not understanding that. Can you explain that to me? You know, how can I better understand this? We'll immediately go for defensive, like, and we'll make jokes and we'll be sarcastic. And so again, it doesn't allow for that open dialogue with our children. And again, during Ramadan, this is the time of the year that should be happening. Those connections should be had. Because again, we shouldn't have those distractions. So we all should be in the home, you know, and praying together and doing all those things. Or just, even if they're not in the home praying, at least praying for them that they will return. Because again, those duas of a mother are always answered. And it's imperative of us to really reconnect with our youth, because again, if we look around the community, they're not here. And these are the successors of when we're gone. And I can say, and I feel as though I can say we, because I'm kind of in that cuffs of that other generation. But I'm in that middle realm that, yeah, none of us know when that time is, but we want to know that those paths that we have carved that are for our kids to come in and step in those shoes and take the reins and move on. How are we preparing them for that? And I know that, yes, it is a part of, that, yeah, the message is here and they should just come back. But it's also the reception of when they do return. Like, again, we have to be mindful more of like how we talk to them, how we, acknowledge that they're here. Instead of saying, oh, we ain't seen you in a while. Wow, look who's here. Like that, you think the person that's coming back don't understand or don't realize that they haven't been there. And that feeling is like, oh, it's like, it sucks the air out of somebody, because again, they've made the strides to come back. And then sometimes just one comment will be something that makes them feel like, yeah, man, see, I knew somebody's gonna say it. I'm just going. And it's not to put blame, but it's just for us to be more mindful of how we are embracing our children, because again, we are losing them to drugs, alcohol, all kind of other addictions out there. Now there's, gender, anything else that's out there that could pull on them. Our kids can't cope. They don't know how to handle stress. They don't know how to have, most kids now, they don't even know how to have an actual conversation with one another, let alone with their parents. Everything is text, and then that's even shortened now. Even the words are being shortened now, that you don't even have to write a whole sentence. And there's a whole nother language that's being expressed. But how is that being a betterment to our children? It's not. And how many of us are, again, how many times have we had conversations just to sit down and ask our kids, what is going on with them? What is happening to them? What can we do to help them process or navigate that space, especially those of us who have been in that world, who have been in, grew up in the community and know the struggle of, yeah, there's that life there. And then there's, Dean, how do you navigate that space? It's not easy. And those of us who have gone through it and come back to the community, come to be that. But we still have our kids that are still now struggling with it, that we're not communicating honestly about what that's like. We're not communicating, even those that came into the and brought us in. I'm so thankful that my mom chose this. But I could tell you, growing up, I wasn't so sure. And it was tough. But I'm so now as an adult, I'm thankful. I pray all the time and make dua for my mom all the time because she did make that decision and she stuck and stayed strong in it. But again, there's that disconnect because we are not having the conversation and having the open dialogue of what it really is like to struggle with that. Being honest, showing the good, the bad, and the indifferent, because we try to paint the picture of everything is like, oh, it's, oh, it's tough, but and paint this rosy picture. But there's that other stuff in there that, again, like Brother Safe said, those things that we struggle with that we're not talking about, because even though some things, yeah, they should be kept, private, but there are other conversations that we can be having that we see our kids dealing with the same thing. And yet we can't really, we disconnect ourselves and wonder, like, why are they happening? What is this happening? Why are they looking like that? Why are they doing this? When it's the DNA of both those two parties. So if there was chaos or if there was any kind of things going on when that child was conceived, well, that's the product of that. And that's from us. It doesn't come from anywhere else. It comes from us. So we have to be able to look at that and ask Allah for guidance on it. Ask Allah which way we should go with this, how we can approach this. Give us the words. And sometimes if you don't have the words, then maybe it's better to deflect to someone else. Because the one thing that we don't want to do is create an open opportunity and say that we're open for dialogue. But then when that dialogue happens, now you shut down. And now it's like, it causes problems. So if you're not the one that can have the open dialogue, then have someone else there that can. Because again, our kids are needing to talk. They're needing to open up. They're needing to share. And if we're not the people, if we're not the ones that they can share with, there are certainly others out there that are laying and waiting for, and especially now it's Ramadan. So as Derek said earlier, Shaitan is chained up. So you think that after Ramadan, it's not going to be a mad dash to try to come at these kids and try to, and from below, from right, from left, from, above. So these are all things that, again, at this time, we have a moment to really connect with our kids. And it's still not too late to connect with them, to have that conversation, sit down at the table or, maybe on a walk around your neighborhood or something. Have that talk, what is it what our kids are needing? How can we support them? And how we could, maybe just create a space for them that they feel comfortable, again, with coming back into the homes and coming back into the masjid and coming back and doing all those things. Because again, we are not going to be here forever. And we need to have that next generation that's going to come in and take this, take what we built and take it to the next level, to build on that, because the foundation is here. But there's that middle piece of how we're going to elevate it. That's the successors that are behind us. Those are the ones that we still have to motivate and we still have to bring back and to talk to. And again, I would just say that when we go off of that thing that we always say, do as I say, not as I do, that never worked. Never worked. Didn't work for us. It's not work for them. So we have to focus on, again, how to make those connections, how to be open and honest with our children, how to, and receive some of that feedback. Because again, when we get that feedback on our jobs, you don't take it and just walk out the door and you I ain't talking to them no more. You take that feedback, you take it on the chin, make dua on it, you try to make the corrections, and you move on. It's the same thing with our children. Have that, ask them, how am I as a parent? What am I, how am I faring? Are there things that I'm missing? Are there things that you might need that I haven't given you? Just to open up the dialogue, just to open up, to have the conversation, because again, there is that disconnect. And if we are not doing this, if we are not having these conversations, if we are not spending time with our children, if we are not making all those things that are pulling on them out there less exciting, and have that be in our homes and have that be a part of what we do, then we're going to lose our children. The one thing that I can remember and I'm sure that those that are on this call that, again, grew up in the community, we remember the times of the camping trips and all those activities and things that we did every year. And though, although sometimes we were like, oh man, we're going camping again. But those are some of our fondest memories of, you know, eating the mackerel out of the can, which I still can't eat now, but doing all those camping trips and the crab and the clamming and all those things that we did it every year. And I know that the community, we can't do it as much now, but we still should be doing things within our family, that it is something that we do that, again, brings our families together. That's a time that our kids can look forward to, that this is a family time. This is something that we do on an ongoing basis, and not something that they look to do out there with other people. Because again, everybody wants engagement. We all want engagement with one another. We've just learned the way to do it Islamically, but that's not necessarily where our kids are right now, even though they know these things, but that's not really what the pull is right now. So we have to find a way to reconnect and create these, you know, create spaces for our kids that they want. Because sometimes, unfortunately, some of our kids don't even want to be around us, because sometimes we don't even want to be around ourselves, let alone our kids. So it's like, and this is a time that, again, because of COVID, some of us, or some of, you know, that have had to be homeschooling their kids, you got to see what your kids were really like out there in the school. And so now you get to be the teacher and you get to see what they were really like. And so you're having difficulties with them. So what does that mean? Then there was a disconnect. Because again, we've been giving that opportunity as the caregivers of these unique individuals. And Allah has blessed us with that, and we cannot fail in that area. This is just something that we just can't fail. We have to take up that mantra. We have to create another space. And it's not too late to reconnect with them. It's not too late to reach out to those that we haven't seen in a while. Just having a conversation like, hey, how are you? Not no questions about where you've been, what's going on, just how are you? How have you been? I just wanted to reach out and just see how you've been, you know? And so that's pretty much where my talk was. It was going to be brief. And so I hope that it was something that, again, allows for us to gain some knowledge of, because I can tell you in the line of work that I'm doing, a lot of the kids that I'm seeing are because they've been caught out there in the street and things have happened to them. And they're suffering from a lot of trauma that, you know, of course we know that, you know, Allah is in control of everything. But there are also some things that we can kind of, So I'll just say that to say that, please, if anything, you know, take these last few days, try to reconnect with your children, try to have those open dialogue, that conversation, those tough conversations, and you know, and just ask Allah for favor, and ask Allah that, again, that He provides us with the words and the actions and those things that we need to be able to, you know, bring our children back. So I thank you for your time. I'm thankful for everyone being on this call, because again, just like Brother Saif said, there are many that were here last year and are not here for this Ramadan and for this Lailatul Qadr. So the fact that we are here in the sharing this space, I'm thankful to Allah. And inshallah, the remainder of our Ramadan days will still be as peaceful and calming, and even greater ibadah. We'll do greater deeds during the last few days. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.